Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn and welcome back to the channel. We've got some serious Friday afternoon vibes here on the Sunshine Coast where I'm based, and this is a follow-up video to the number one reason why you're awake and why other people around you are asleep, maybe all of them, maybe some of them. And so this is essentially a part two where we'll be picking up that theme and expanding on it, going into it deeper. And if you haven't watched the part one video first, I suggest that you do that, because I won't be going into explaining the terms which I'll use in this video again. They're all in the part one video. So when we start to analyze and explore the difference in vibration or frequency between these two chakras, between Svadhisthana chakra, between Manipura chakra, then we start to unravel and understand at a much deeper level this polarity between people who are awake and people who are, for want of a better word, asleep. I personally don't really like that word that much, but when I use it, we can understand what I'm referring to pretty clearly. Now, of the chakra system, there are no more two chakras that are more in antithesis of each other than the Svadhisthana and Manipura chakra, because Svadhisthana is ruled by the moon and Manipura is ruled by the sun. So we have this essential polarity, and this is a profound understanding of really what's going on at the deeper levels of frequency, consciousness, ultimately thought and perception of reality, is why some people can perceive this and why other people can't. And it doesn't necessarily refer to social things or economic things, it's purely consciousness. So for example, I gave a book on the power structure of the planet to someone to read years ago. This person was like a real corporate warrior, really high up in the corporate world, and they read one. I hadn't heard about any of these topics before. They read this one book and they understood everything in the time frame it took them to read the book. And after it, just from the look in their eye of talking to this person, you could tell, like, they just understood the nature of this reality, the nature of the control systems implemented by the elite, and how this orchestrated agenda is controlled from the top down in this pyramid structure, which we've seen a lot used over the years. And the reason why this person understood this is because their consciousness was in Manipura chakra, because they understood the arena of the corporate world with all the politics and all these sorts of things. And this is all on Manipura chakra. And in regard to the topic of politics, there's this general social norm, which again, all these social norms are on Svadhisthana, because you don't want to rock the boat, you want to fit in with everybody else. If everyone's walking off the cliff, at least I'm walking off it with everyone else like a lemming. This expression that you shouldn't talk about politics, again, that's a form of social cohesion, a form of social indoctrination, where people say you shouldn't talk about politics. Well, that's basically exactly the agenda of the elite, because we shouldn't be discussing the nature of who gets what, when, why, how, where. And that's really what politics is. And when people are not interested in politics, it means they're not interested in where the roads get built, what happens with their schools, what happens with their rates, what happens with the taxation system, what happens with all these regulations, which is simply burying your head in the sand, is precisely what the elite want, what the people on Manipura who run the planet more want, because they don't want people to discuss these issues. And in this way, it's kind of having a more mature attitude, where if these issues are discussed, that it's really a case of agreeing to disagree, because you're not going to find someone you're going to agree with on everything related to these issues. So the idea of don't talk about politics is a way of keeping everyone suppressed and not actually addressing this agenda, because the ruling class, the elite, throughout history, you can see this through the feudal system, through the Middle Ages, whatever it is, they have by design managed to suppress the consciousness in Svadhisthana simply to control it. And this is basically the masses, which is the collective. And this means that there is this system of control understood by the nature of Manipura chakra, which, if people raise their consciousness simply to this frequency, there'd be some kind of social revolution within a week. Now, I've seen this very confused understanding in the awakening community of getting out of the lower three chakras and so on. It's completely incorrect. I'll discuss that in another video. That's 100% incorrect. In fact, if people were simply to actually vibrate the frequency of Manipura chakra, there would be a mass transformation on the planet very, very rapidly. So trying to bypass these lower chakras is completely wrong from a spiritual point of view, from a metaphysical point of view, and also from the point of view of understanding why certain people are awake and other people are asleep. Now, this derogatory term, the sheeple, it really does unfortunately sum up the case that we're currently in terms of vibration on the planet in regards to Svadhisthana chakra, because the sheep obviously do want to be fitting in with the crowd and so on, the herd. And when the direction of the herd changes, then there's a new norm. Now, this is what I was referring to in the previous video when I said, generally speaking, people who are understanding this awakening process are on Manipura chakra, because when a certain percentage or a certain number of the collective shift their value system, shift their belief system, then that becomes a new norm. And that's actually what we're seeing on the planet now. That's actually what's actually the collective awakening that's occurring at the level in the context of what I referred to in the previous video. It's not necessarily spiritually evolved or self-realized or something like this, but it's more an awakening of the agenda of the elite and the power structure in terms of social issues, political issues, economic issues, environmental issues, which do obviously lead into spiritual issues ultimately. Now, what's important to understand with this is when the new norm comes in, it's safe for the collective to embrace new values, new belief systems, a new way of being. So this changes everything. And this is what is occurring now, which will create the paradigm shift, regardless of whether people's consciousness is more dominant in Manipura chakra or Svadhisthana chakra. Basically, this is the collective shifting, and this will create a new norm. So when we think about this Roman phrase, give them bread and circuses, it's a Roman phrase by a poet actually, it wasn't by an emperor, and the poet's name was Juvenal. He actually referred to this because this consciousness in Svadhisthana is simply focusing on pleasure, whether it's sexual pleasure, entertainment, foodie culture, all these things. It's all funneling into Svadhisthana chakra. And he actually made this statement as a way of actually criticizing the people for their ignorance of their civic duty, which is a more Manipura, more vertical, more refined, more dignified way of being. So this idea of food, because the sense of taste is on Svadhisthana, so this explosion of foodie shows and all these cooking shows and everything, nothing wrong with these things, but again, it shows a consciousness dominant on Svadhisthana chakra. I mean, we all have to eat, but it's the taste, which is the whole thing, which is again a reinforcing of this consciousness. And then entertainment, again, nothing wrong with entertainment, but it's all on Svadhisthana chakra. All these kind of movies and music and a lot of art and all these sort of things, entertainment, TV, celebrity culture, again, something on Svadhisthana chakra. And the more that you embrace or identify with those states, the more you're actually amplifying the consciousness in Svadhisthana at a mental level. And this is very important to understand for your own awakening journey, because to become more in Manipura is to become more vertical, to become more disciplined, to become more refined in a certain way. It's actually a higher state of consciousness. There's more spokes on Manipura chakra, and it's related with the fire element. So some of you might say, oh yeah, but I know people in the New Age community, they're into channeling, they're into the ascension, and they're into these things. Most of the values that are expressed in the awakening community in this context are again on Svadhisthana, because it's like this dreamy fantasy type thing. Like, I don't have to change my diet, I don't have to do meditation, I just have to hold my crystal and draw a card and I'll go into the fifth dimension and create a light body. That is a complete illusion, a fantasy, which again is on Svadhisthana chakra. And the discipline, the kind of more fiery approach to spiritual practice, to evolution on Manipura chakra, is what's required to make this evolutionary leap, to become more conscious, ultimately become more aware. So many of the New Age beliefs and value systems are again on Svadhisthana. That's why a lot of the Svadhisthana infiltration of the New Age community is a psyop agenda to simply keep everyone dumbed down and keep them absorbing information that's correct by fake channelers, fake psychics, people who claim all kinds of things about their contact experience or whatever. Again, it's this confusion of Svadhisthana, confusion. Things in Manipura are much more clearer, much more determined in a certain way. And this is why, for example, martial arts is an example of Manipura chakra, because it has this discipline. Like the Shaolin monks, for example, it has this structure, it has this verticality to it. It's much, much more on Manipura chakra. Sport in Australia, sport is such a huge thing. Not the watching of it, perhaps, because that is more combative. It is more kind of engaging the consciousness in Manipura chakra to a certain degree. It's a bit limited, but the whole couch potatoes, sit and watch the sport like it's a form of entertainment, the consciousness behind it is often on Svadhisthana chakra. So we can see things like the understanding of power, more on Manipura chakra. Capitalism, for example, is more on Manipura chakra. And you can see with the influence of the corporatocracy today in so-called democratic countries that basically the ones with the most economic power in terms of lobby groups and everything are able to directly influence the political process through persuasion, through advertising, through marketing, through ultimately the manipulation of human consciousness, which many people are starting to wake up to this agenda. So we can see that this illumination of Manipura chakra is like breaking free, and it is a big leap for people to move out of this sphere of consciousness and Svadhisthana, which is dominant on the planet, and to move into this stronger, more disciplined, more focused, more self-confidence, more self-belief, more empowered state of Manipura chakra. And this is what is sorely missing in the awakening community today, that there are few people who are picking up the sword for the cause of liberating the planet from this oppression to create a truly more elevated state of consciousness and this new paradigm, which is coming in. It will come in gradually over the next 2 decades. I'll talk about this more in other videos, but this is what the consciousness on Manipura chakra really is and really embodies, and this is a welcome change to the consciousness on this planet. So we'll leave that there. I hope that this has been useful for you. If you're new to the channel, please like, share and subscribe. There'll be more content coming, and hope you got something out of this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.